Hi guys, thanks very much for checking out another episode of Kettlebell Sport Talk. This week I'm joined by an absolutely fantastic sports nutrition performance expert in Matt Lovell. Matt has been there and done that when it comes to working with elite athletes. He was instrumental with the guys who won the 2003 World Cup in Rugby Union with the England team. He's got so many fantastic testimonials from Hollywood A-listers to high-level athletes from all different sports. Matt currently works as a consultant to loads of different teams, loads of different athletes, loads of different clients, high-end, but he also runs a supplement company which is a bit more holistic and a bit more high-end when it comes to looking at the ingredients and looking at the research behind that. So we really dig in deep about which supplements are beneficial for kettlebell sport athletes. We dig into the importance of looking at cycling your nutrition and actually just making sure that you're getting the most out of it. It was a really fun talk. Matt's helped me massively when I took the first plunge into dropping down a weight category last year. He's also given me a lot of guidance on what supplements are best to take, when and where. We also discussed that in the podcast as well, rather than just get sucked into taking a supplement all year round. It's about trying to maximize when to take them so you get the benefits of those. So I got a lot from it. We've had some great feedback on the podcast as well anyway. So I hope you guys get an absolute boatload from this. Like I say, if you've got any comments, just drop them below. Also, make sure that you do subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys, so you don't miss episodes. We are launching these every single week, so make sure that you don't miss an episode of Kettlebell Sport Talk with myself and Simon Trenholm, or with one of the guests that we have on. So hope you like it, guys. So sit back, get a notepad and pen. I'm sure you'll take a lot from this, as I did. And speak soon. Cool. Hey Matt, how we doing, mate? How's life?
Yeah, good morning, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, it is morning, mate. It's the only time I can pin you down, mate. You're like the Scarlet Pimpernel.
It is bright and early for sure. I managed to get up actually a couple of hours ago just to work on a book I'm writing. So it's sometimes it's the only part of the day which you can actually get, which is free and quiet, and you can head down and read through some stuff.
That bit of mind space, it's good, isn't it? You know, there's nobody bothers you that time in the morning, do they, mate?
No, it's not too many people, other than the cats moaning at me for food.
Where's my protein, Dad? Where's my protein? He's got to get his macros in. Cool, mate. Cool. Like I say, much appreciated for coming on. Obviously, for our guys, they're predominantly all kettlebell lifters, endurance athletes and stuff. I know you've helped me massively in the past in terms of giving me guidance on sort of splits and cutting weight and stuff like that. So I just want to sort of pick your brains on that sort of stuff again, and obviously get some of that information out to some of the guys and stuff as well. Do you know?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm really pleased to be working with you and helping you. And I think, you know, in a weight categorized sport, then you know, that's where we started things off. It's the sort of same as a fighter or MMA, is that if you can make weight at the leanest and most powerful body composition, you are likely to get technical and strength endurance advantage over, you know, your competitors. So there's that whole body composition management, carb cycling, because you have to have carbs due to the nature of the sport. But just chipping away and bringing that fat mass down, and then possibly not with a sweat down necessarily, but with a you know, maybe 2 kg to just an overnight sweat. So you wake up, you make your weight, and then you reload, and then off you go into the competition. It does fascinate me, the nature of the sport. Actually, I've been watching a lot of your videos on the Facebook group, and it is quite something. Because it's such a crossover of maintaining a level of power endurance for an extended period of time. You've got massive lactate accumulation, You've got to have a really good engine, just
Yeah,
so it's clearing everything out and just keeping the whole system burning. And you've got to be strong.
yeah,
Let's face it. If anyone here hasn't cleaned, 32 kettlebell in one hand, let alone two hands, and tried to press it over their heads, then, with a good warm up, go and try and do that this morning, and then you'll get a little bit of a sense of just how hard it is to do that
yeah.
sport.
It's a fact, like you say, it's a fascinating one, because, and that's where there's some people doing some great information, but like studies now, it's sort of catching up. But it's really trying to, because it's come from Russia, a lot of the papers are in Russian, and so it's very much trying to find a model that sort of translates and fits over. And that's obviously why I wanted to reach out to you, because obviously you've worked with such a wide range of sports, predominantly like high level rugby and stuff. Just a World Cup winners medal to your cabinet there, mate. But obviously you've worked with those guys, so that level of detail, and obviously I know we've spoken previously at big events, and obviously just really fascinated about the work that you do, because the holistic approach that you take is one that really excites me, in terms of actually it's looking at it at a granular level, but also looking at, actually there's quite a lot of grey area, because kettlebell sport it's one big massive grey area, because it's kind of, you're lifting for longer periods of time and stuff, and that's why I wanted to pick your brains on that. So obviously one thing that you helped with me was obviously bringing the weight down, and obviously we chatted about like what you've just said there, the importance of bringing it down gently. And we had a chat on Coaches Talk a few weeks back, me and Si, and we were talking about, should you cut weight or should you not cut weight? Some guys should maybe try and get down to the weight a little bit early, just to have a feeling of what that's like. But I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Should people cut weight or should they not cut weight?
Well, I think it, it's highly individual, so you have to do what you're most comfortable with. But I think not cutting a weight to a marginal degree, I think you're giving away a performance advantage. However, if you're trying to cut 10 kg pre-comp, then you're entering a whole other world of pain and danger and dehydration and things like that. So yeah, a marginal drop would seem a sensible idea, and perhaps you have an off-season walk around weight. Let's say you compete at 80, you might walk around out of comp at 85.
Yeah.
And you might get slowly ready for comp down over a 6-week period down to maybe 82. So just a very slow cut of, half a kilo a week, which is not too fast. And then you'll know if you go to sleep at 82 and you wake up, you probably be around about 80 and a half or thereabouts. So normal metabolism overnight, you'll be using up a certain amount of nutrients, and also you'll be slightly dehydrated when you wake up. So that's an easy one. So you can make weight, and then you can pop back up to 82ish, and you'll be then 2 kg more lean mass to do the job than someone been walking around at 79 or 80 kg. So I think I think I wouldn't go against what people prefer to do, but in my mind, from a technical perspective, I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think what I found interesting was when I was competing in the weight category above, so that was up to 85, because I knew I had that leeway of, well, actually I'm walking around about 82, 83, but that wasn't lean mass. That was, well, I've got 2 kilos, so I can kind of get away with eating what I want. And I think sometimes it just adds that level of discipline in. But I think for guys who are kind of at that middle point, I think it's very much of just get used to competing, don't worry about cutting. But I think for the guys who've probably been competing a long time and they've got that bit of scope, they can really sort of look at themselves and say, I'm not eating 100% here. I know I've got a lot of leeway. I know I can cut down. And what that's done is it's forced me to stay accountable.
Yes.
literally, I compete in 78, and now I don't really go above 81. For the simple fact is, for me personally, that's when I start just giving myself too much excess. And what I want to try and do is get used to not having such a big difference in the weight when I'm competing. But that's, again, it's completely individual and stuff as well, you know. And I find it really interesting. I think the main thing is kind of leaner mass, you know, less body fat. You know, you are performing at a more optimal level. So we start chatting now about, well, actually, Steve, how effective are you being at a leaner mass in terms of less body fat? Actually, your engine's working at a lot more of an efficient pace in terms of lactate clearing and all of that kind of thing, isn't it? You know,
it is, and that's the next bit about the sport, isn't it? You've got to really have a good knowledge of the energy systems and know about aerobic capacity, know where your lactate threshold sort of kicks in, and what heart rate that might be for you at a given moment.
Yeah.
You need to train aerobic metabolism. So, some steady state training is actually, specific for your sport. That's why it's good to see you doing your 10Ks in the morning. It always makes me feel a bit guilty that I'm not doing the same when I see you on the thing. And got to do some cardio. I think, steady state cardio has had a bad rap in the last few years, but actually, when you look at the benefits for cognition and productivity and just making your body better at using fat as a source of fuel, it's definitely got a place in the weekly training plan.
I think the thing is kind of like there was that seemed to be a big massive push, didn't there? So, steady state slow cardio will make you burn muscle and drop and kills muscle and shrinks it down, and you lose power and all of that kind of stuff. But for me, when you bring it down onto a level, it's actually, I just want to work the left ventricle of the heart. That's the main thing for me. That's what I'm trying to do. And like I say, you've got to make your body as efficient as possible, because you might find, I'll do loads of HIIT training and everything else like that. But yourself, it's kind of, you can't have one without the other. And I'm sure you've seen that with the rugby boys. It's kind of like, listen, you might be powerful, but if you can't go for, on average, high-speed plays, around about 40 minutes in rugby, depending on position and stuff. If you can't, you don't have a good enough engine to sustain that. And this is arguably why the French just seem to collapse at 60 minutes, don't they? Because they know that their cardio system seems to be like a little bit lower, Do
you know what? If the French actually got a decent S&C / conditioning system going, and if they sorted out their nutrition, they'd be a horrible team to play against.
Yeah.
There'd just be some simple changes that would make them incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
They've got the flair, they love the game, and their attacking rugby is dangerous.
Yeah.
But like you say, they just die. They haven't got that, but the extra bit, the background, sports science or whatever you want to call it, to sort them out.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things is, they're probably not, you're looking at performance supplementation in the right ways that, a lot of the English teams are doing at the moment either.
Yeah, I think it's always looking for those smaller final gains and stuff, isn't it? But I think a lot of it comes back to that big solid foundation, doesn't it? And I think that's what I enjoyed. I think the very first contact I had with any of your material, I think, was the palm size plan. I think Brendan put put all of that sort of stuff out there, and I just love the simplicity of that. And I think that was one thing that sort of jumped out to me at first when we were sort of chatting. It's kind of like, actually, Steve, like, you could try and add citrulline malate, you could try and add all of these supplements, but if you're living off having 3 or 4 Mars bars a day and you haven't got the foundations in right, then it ain't going to work, So, I mean, how do you work when you're working with high professional athletes? What do you sort of do when you first go to? Because obviously they sort of come to you and say, right, Matt, I want to take this shake and we'll take that. what sort of approach do you take when you're sort of breaking that down into just the basics?
So I think you've hit the nail on the head. So like if the foundation is a quality diet, and actually, although there's controversy around it, that there is increasing science looking at acid alkaline balance of the types of food you eat. So if you take a protein or starchy carb, there's a net acid load. If you take fruits and vegetables, there's a net alkaline load. So you need to have the right balance in your diet to begin with in order to put your body in the best place in order that you can tolerate a high lactic acid load.
Right.
And actually, science as it does is catching up, and in the last couple of years there's a couple of good studies showing that if you eat more alkaline foods, then your aerobic, anaerobic type capacity, it goes up. And it's not rocket science to sort of put two and two together. If you're producing acid and you can have a buffer, then you can tolerate more acid. So once you've got that diet in place, then you'd be looking at the next best go-to supplementation. And so there's 2 or 3 things which are really, really effective. One is beta alanine. It concentrates in the muscles as carnosine. It's a loader, so it needs to be taken for a period of weeks before it fully saturates the muscles. Has direct effect on metabolizing hydrogen ions, so lactic acid production. So your work capacity increases, so you can tolerate more lactate. You can produce more force in a given time. Your lactate threshold will be pushed up slightly. If you then so that's a muscle lactate buffer. Then if you want to sort of target the blood quickly, it's bicarb. I mean, bicarb's been around. It's been known about in anything and track and field. So 400, 800. Even argue for 1500 meter running. You take a little bit of bicarb, it has an immediate effect. It's really, really good. Obviously, like with any strategy, bicarb's one which can cause GI upset, so you need to practice it first. But even a little bit of bicarb, just 1 teaspoon, will help you a little bit. It appears to be good for the kidneys and so on. So there's some associated health benefits from using a little bit of bicarb, even on a daily basis. And then you can bicarbonate load or take a bigger dose before an event. And then you can then look at sort of blood flow, oxygenation type stuff, and then we're looking at sort of nitric oxide production. So amino acid wise, you're looking at things like citrulline malate. You're looking at all of the nitrate sort of plant-based kingdom, so the beetroot loading, any kind of plants, pomegranate juice, those types of things, which basically open up the blood vessels, increase oxygen, and increase something called oxygen kinetics, which just means you can use more oxygen when you exercise. So they're all going to help. I mean, I've put all of these into what I called a performance power loader. So it's got all of the nutrients that I've just spoken about, other than the nitrates, and it's also got creatine phosphate. So I haven't spoken about that yet, but the creatine phosphate as a phosphate would also have a lactic acid buffering effect. And the phosphate system is the system which is 10 to 20 seconds high intensity exercise. So that's the system by using some creatine, you could potentially get a couple more reps towards the end of a 10-minute block of work. Just power through those last few.
That speed reserve,
that's it. It's a fantastic nutrient. Again, heaps of studies on longevity, cognitive benefits, anti-dementia effects. So brain protective effects, good for concussion. It just increases the energy in cells, so it helps the body heal. It protects your muscle mass when you're dieting. you know, probably one of the most studied of all nutrients. My son's just going to school. There we go. Yeah, so again, a bread and butter supplement really for most types of athletic endeavour and even for general health.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I think the interesting stuff there is actually because obviously kettlebell sport kind of encompasses pretty much all of the above. Yes, I know we're leading into it's a pure endurance sport, but still it's not just a maximal lift. So actual cognitive abilities are really important because it's being able to focus, because any of the kettlebell lifters who listen to this and maybe other sports will know that actually you could be the fittest person going, but actually if you're not feeling sharp that day, or actually if you don't train or if you don't do something to enhance that cognitive ability, i.e. being able to focus and decision makers and actually getting to the flow, then you're always going to struggle, you know. And I think with kettlebell sport, you've got to be able to get into that flow state. You've got to be able to focus on what's happening with the time and be aware and stuff. So yeah, I think obviously incorporating all of that is really important. So the fact that you've got a supplement in there that ticks all of those boxes, makes it a big winner, you know. So obviously on that, yeah, I mean the bicarb's an interesting one, isn't it? Because the first person who put me onto that was Jared Deacon.
Oh yeah.
It was funny because I was teaching a workshop with him, and he was just like, "You competing what?" He was like, and then like I did a bit of training set, and he was just looking. He's like, "It's not for me." But then obviously he wasn't a bad 400-meter runner back in his day, was he? You know, just a Commonwealth medalist and stuff. But he was a big fan of bicarb just because it was simple, easy, effective. And because he's from the northeast where I am, it's cheap, isn't it?
It's funny you should say that, because actually you can buy a pot of bicarb for, you know, £3 or £4, or you can go just bulk bicarb and you can get 10 kilos for not that much more money. So definitely buy in bulk. Yeah.
Just make sure it's labelled up, guys. If you do get pulled over by the police, just make sure it does say it's bicarb on there, or you might get asked a few questions. So that's great. I mean, looking at them then, what type of doses do you sort of recommend to be effective? Because I think a lot of not speaking bad about the full supplement industry, but where a lot of companies do fall down is they tend to just say, oh, we've got this ingredient, we've got that ingredient. But then when you look at it, it's like, it's just not enough to be effective. So kind of, if we're looking at sort of beta-alanine, citrulline malate, and some of the nitrates, what's kind of the optimal levels people should be looking at in terms of loading to get a benefit out? Because obviously you could buy a product for £10 or you could buy a product for £50. Well, most people, human nature, will go to the £10 product, but if it's got half a gram of or 1 gram of beta-alanine in, is it actually worth it, you know?
Well, if people want to email me afterwards, I've got a little spreadsheet where you can put your body weight in.
Ah, nice.
And yeah, it actually tells you exactly how much you need of each of those nutrients.
Ah, spot on.
So yeah, beta-alanine, more or less all of the studies look at about 3.2 grams.
Yeah.
So if you take that much every day, you will get a benefit. But if you weigh 120 kilos, obviously that benefit's going to take a little bit longer to occur than if you weigh 50 kilos.
Yeah.
And so dosing it according to body weight is a more sensible approach.
Right. Okay.
The spreadsheet I've got will get you maximum loading in probably 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. Okay.
But it will suggest quite high amounts, and it is well, you'll know if you take it, it does make you sort of itch. I used to call it itchy scratchy.
yeah. Feels like you've got that beard of bees, isn't it? That old carnival trick where somebody's got a beard.
And some people like that because they feel it's effective, but some people it makes them feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you can get over that effect by dividing your doses, obviously taking it with a little bit of food. Some people prefer a slow release beta-alanine, which you can get in tablet form from some companies. I'm fine with the powder that you just take in divided doses.
Yeah.
Creatine again, is I'm not a fan of a loading dose. I think that it's too aggressive. So a steady dose. Look for a 4 to 6 week loading period, and the creatine's about 1/16 of your body weight in grams per kilo. So if you weigh 80, it is 5 grams.
Yeah.
But if you weigh 120, it is 7.5 grams.
Right. Okay.
And if you're only 50 kg, you need less than that.
Nice.
The nitrates, yes, it depends really. I mean, people that eat a lot of vegetables might get less of a benefit from the nitrates because they're already,
got quite a lot of them.
Exactly, yeah. So if someone's got a poor diet, also for much heavier rugby players, then the nitrates I think are more effective.
Yeah.
You probably get a good benefit from somewhere around 500 milligrams, something like that. But you can go up to 1.5 grams of nitrates if it's like as in supplemental form.
Yeah.
Most of the beetroot type shots are dosed, so 1 or 2 of those beetroot shots is all you need.
Right.
And you'll get an effect. The levels sort of peak about 1.5 to 2 hours following ingestion.
Right. Okay.
So you wanna time it right. And also, practice. Look, I've heard of some endurance runners thinking, beetroot's brilliant, and then maybe popping in a load of bicarb in a 500 ml of beetroot, and then lo and behold, they have a little bit of an accident 1 mile into the race. So always practicing training first, whatever you're going to think about doing in competition. It's a golden rule, but one that people, even nowadays, they still forget to do that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, isn't it? And I think the thing is because nutrition performance is so individualized, it's so unique. And I know when we were working together in the beginning, it's kind of like, right, this week, let's see how you respond. What's your energy levels like? Do you like this? Let's try and add this in, because you've got to find that. And I think that 4 to 6 week loading phase, which allows the tissues to be saturated. But I also think it's good for you just to have a good objective view and just sort of say, well, does it fit around your lifestyle? Are you reacting well to it? Are you not reacting well to it? There's always that feeling out process, isn't it?
And that's just reminding me. So the phrase "training naked." So basically, training without any supplementation. Get your levels up to a good base level before you start popping all these things in.
Yeah.
Because you want to really upregulate your body's natural lactate processing mechanisms as far as possible, and then start your loading phase leading into competition. Yeah. Because if you do it too early, then you're not maximizing the best effects from your training. Yeah.
That's interesting you said that. So I just want to dig in. One of the major studies around that, what we're looking at is obviously creatine. It's probably what, like you say, it's most research supplement out there, but there's a lot of studies now talking about how you alter levels as you age and stuff. But also, it's kind of, is that an all year round supplement that you recommend, or is it would you say, right, take a break off that? Because to be fair, there's a lot of studies out there kind of saying that this is the new kind of multivitamin when it comes to cognitive abilities and the effect it has on the brain and stuff.
I think it's healthy to take a break from supplements periodically, although the nature and safety of creatine does make it totally allowable if you wanted to use it as a daily. Yeah. That being said, if I've got 2 weeks off at Christmas and there's nothing in the way of competitions coming up, it's safe to take a natural break from supplementation around that sort of time. Yeah. And you you might also do the same in a summer holiday or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's just as much as anything, it gives you it saves you a bit of cash.
Yeah.
And it just lets everything sort of normalize it somewhat.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I still believe in cycling creatine in that manner, and beta alanine, I'd almost certainly cycle that.
Right.
Yeah. That would be one to go on and off, and in a sort of wave cycling approach.
Nice. So that obviously, but lead straight into that. What sort of cycles would you sort of say then? Obviously, would you try and say maybe we know 4 to 6 weeks is kind of an adequate loading phase to start getting the benefits. So would you say kind of every 12 weeks or 8 weeks or longer? And what would you sort of say is a good sort of wave cycle for that type of supplementation in terms of beta alanine and creatine, citrulline, malate kind of thing?
I quite like the 3-month cycle, because there's a sort of seasonal kind of effect with that.
Right. Okay.
I think it's a good idea every 3 months to have a complete week off, like detraining type.
Yeah.
Change of scene type week. It's harder to do that than say it, though, isn't it?
It does.
But you want to stop training when you decide to stop, rather than be forced to stop because you're getting stale, overtrained, and niggles and things like that. So that 1 week off to completely rest and recuperate, I think, is a good idea. And that would also tie in with maybe a 2 to 4 week period off the sort of what you might call the performance supplementation.
Yeah.
You can stay on, fish oils, multivits, and things like that if you're using them. That would be more of a year-round approach. But I also normally advocate a 5 on 2 off.
Right. Okay.
So and that again means you're not tied to the supplement cupboard every day of the week.
Yeah.
Leading into comp, you might not miss your 2 days on your loaders, but other than that, in sort of week in, week out training, 5 on 2 off, I think is a good idea. It allows you to forget for a day and then have a day off.
Yeah, I've certainly been guilty of that myself, just falling into that trap. And it's kind of like Sunday morning or whatever it may be. It's, I've got to have this and I've got to have that and I've got to be regimented. Or if I'm going away, if I'm going teaching on a course, or if I'm going away for the weekend with my partner, it's like, should I take a little tub of creatine and stuff like that? And you just but it's human beings, we're so habitual, aren't we? And I think it's kind of, all right, well, I'm just used to doing this the same day in, same day out. This is safe. This is what feels normal. But yeah, like I said, I think it is important that you sort of take that step back from time to time, isn't it?
The other, there's if you look at aerobic capacity, there's also, and then you sort of pick apart your kind of Krebs cycle, electron transport chain. So basically the two methods by which your body recycles and makes more ATP, energy currency of the cell. Then you can see in there's other key nutrients. So once you've got all your loaders, your creatine, beta alanine, bicarb, citrulline malate, whichever you prefer, then you can sort of go step up and say, okay, what else is going on in there? The citric acid cycle or the Krebs cycle. Actually, citric acid on its own has been shown to have some ergogenic benefits. And then you go through the sort of aerobic transport chain, and then the coenzyme Q10 pops up.
Yeah.
The obvious need for iron, so testing for low levels of iron, it's relatively uncommon, but in a female competitor, you'd be wanting to, anemia is obviously going to kill your ability to perform, because you've got no oxygen carrying capacity in the red blood cells. So those are all sort of what you might call next step stuff. A lot of those nutrients I include in the supplements I make. So one of the the pre-training aminos, the metabolic amino complex. If you look in there, you'll see the Krebs cycle intermediates, and then, that's why they're there, because they do enhance your body's ability to produce energy whilst you're exercising. There's the whole inflammatory stuff, isn't there? So, once you've trained, you are in a depleted and damaged state. So how fast you can recover and repair is going to mean how hard you can then subsequently train, and so on and so forth. So looking at all the anti-inflammatory strategies which don't impair adaptation, so your fish oils, curcumin, nutrients like that on the back of an anti-inflammatory diet from all the fruits, vegetables, spices, herbs, those can make a massive difference. And you look at studies, particularly in older people, who use curcumin or fish oils around protein feed and training, and taking away the unnecessary inflammation actually enhances the protein sort of synthesis. So you need some inflammation, but you only want just enough. You don't want it to be so inflamed that it's blocking the repair process.
It's like having the open fire in the living room. You want it so it's warming it up, but you don't want the fire burning the house down, do you?
Nice analogy.
That's really interesting. Now it just shows you how complex and how much more there is to it, and actually having an understanding of these things obviously makes you a bit more informed on the food choices that you take and make, and actually being able to plan your training around that. One thing that I've been doing a lot of lately is making sure, and it is difficult, but actually periodizing the nutrition, because we periodize training and stuff like that, but actually periodizing nutrition's such an important piece of the puzzle, isn't it? Because you've got to match the demands. What kind of approach do you sort of take when you're looking at that, in terms of, say, we use your recent trip out to Georgia and stuff? I know they've got the Tier 2 nations competition run side by side to the Six Nations. That's right. What sort of strategies have you taken working alongside the S&C coaches there? Have you sort of said, right, during comp, try and get them to have these types of foods or this calorie intake or supplementation? What sort of approach goes on there?
Well, they have individual plans, but then there's a certain amount of like group, I suppose, swaying their choices via the menu design that goes on through the canteen. So there's red days, or strong days you might call them, where they're encouraged to overfeed carbohydrates just to replenish. And then we have some green days or lean days where there's less of those types of choices available, and then individually the players are encouraged to make slightly better choices. Obviously, in a team-based approach, it's hard, because you might, on a lean day, you might still have a skinny player who needs to pack on some mass. So there has to be the right choices that player can make within the parameters of a green day, lean day type of thing. The idea is that you flag up and the signage and the messages that go out to the players on that particular day say, okay, this is the day where we're going to try and keep things a little bit on the lower side, which paves the way to load the 3 day sort of loading effect. So day before match day, recovery day, where things are much more intense in terms of like a pure carb loading type strategy. And I think for kettlebell athletes, similar sort of approach, because there's some good research showing that if you underfuel and train, you cause positive adaptations to the mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cells. So it's that phrase: if it doesn't kill you, it will make you stronger. If you train and then underfeed and then go to sleep, so you obviously take a bit of protein after you after you've trained, but you don't have a huge amount of calories.
Yeah.
Over a 3-week period, you end up being a little bit fitter than the guys that yam down all the carbs straight up directly after training.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you sort of train and then sleep low, as it were. So sleep in a carb depleted state.
Yeah.
That's easier to do than during the day because you're not aware of any hunger while you're. But you always have to balance depleted state training with fully fueled training, because really the enzymes that you use to metabolize carbohydrates down regulate the less carbs you eat. So if you're trying to do a high fat semi keto approach to high intensity sport, it's fine for a little period of time to push the adaptations, but you can't do that leading into the competitive state.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the nutrients I've been manipulating there would just be like a fat carb seesaw, really. So
right. Okay.
As your carbs come down, you need to replace that with some healthy fats, and depending on your body composition goals will depend on the calorie deficit or surplus.
Yeah.
And then as your carbs go up, I tend to look to chip away and bring the fat down, just because it's very easy to go too high calorie if you have high fat, high carb foods.
Yeah. And
traditionally, all the high fat, high carb foods do tend to be the ones which are the most bad for you as well.
Yeah.
It's I know, refined wheat plus cheese, or chips or donuts and so on. Yeah.
It's the good old donut, responsible for so many heart attacks up and down the country, isn't it?
Yeah, go shish kebab all the way, mate.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Phil, I had one question from fellow coach Cy Trenon. He's doing a lot of work now. He's realised he's not the young 21-year-old skateboarder that he used to be. I won't say how many years ago, but he's been looking into now the changes in his approach to nutrition as he's got older. So as he's getting towards the big 5-0, but he's realised that actually as you get to certain ages, you've got to start adjusting your calorie intake. You might look at your nutrient intake as well, because different tissues are affected at different ages and stuff like that. So in terms of athletes that are kind of over 50 or getting towards that, what sort of approaches or what recommendations would you sort of make to those guys to try and help them with obviously just recovering and trying to still train effectively, but obviously taking into account their age,
Well, I'm in the same boat. I'm only a couple of years off 50, so I think it's a very, I'm really interested in that area just because I'm, getting longer in the tooth. I think there's a few things. So inflammation becomes more and more important because as you get older, those inflammatory processes just can get a little bit more out of control.
Yeah.
So you tend to need to stay right on top of those types of things. Your tissue turnover, cellular recovery is going to be slower than a 21-year-old.
Yeah.
Just, there's a variety of hormonal and other reasons for that. So you have to be, you can definitely do the same. You can do the same probably into your 60s, maybe even 70s. But you need to take longer between those bouts to fully regenerate.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I'm finding is just strategic rest days. So where you might have been able to do 3 on the bounce, now it's better to do 2 on the bounce plus a rest day than another 2 kind of thing.
Yeah.
And if you go 3, 4, and then 5, by day 5, you're not really getting that much out of your training.
Yeah.
Other than the mental benefits from being in the gym.
Yeah.
Protein synthesis is lower, so paying actually a larger protein feeds have been shown to be more anabolic in the older you get.
Right. Okay.
So the sort of intermittent fasting starts to become more effective.
Right. Okay.
So don't eat for longer than you do eat in a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And then when you do eat, eat larger servings of protein all at once, and then potentially pop in some leucine, some other triggers for getting the mTOR up, getting the protein synthesis up.
Okay.
You might want to use some digestive support, because as we age, the whole digestive system becomes a bit more inefficient. But that becomes much more pertinent, you know, when you're 60, 70, 80.
Yeah.
In your 40s, probably things are still going to be all right.
Yeah.
But that would be, some digestive enzymes or something. And that will help you break down a higher protein feed. If you take 60, 80 grams of protein all in one meal. A handful of digestive enzymes can help with that. You've got the hormonal aspects. So testosterone, growth hormone, all those things are going to be way lower than when you're 25.
Yeah.
So but testosterone doesn't have to be lower. In fact, you can maintain that, but you have to keep on top of your body fat and in the inflammatory processes.
Right,
so the higher the inflammation is in your body, the harder it is for your body to produce enough testosterone. And so any like herbal, natural support that you can have, really focusing on the sleep aspect.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons, one of the most popular products I make is the R5 aminos, because it is designed around the sleep cycle. And that product was born out on the back of the same protocols we used in the 2003 Rugby World Cup winning squad, where we were dosing them up with aminos, minerals, and we were encouraging a twice daily sleep cycle. So they'd do the 8 hours at night, and then they'd have a 2-hour block to sleep in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So potentially then getting two hits of growth hormone release through 2 sleep cycles. If I was in power, mate, I'd put siesta in the national curriculum. Everyone would be going to sleep in the afternoon for a couple of hours.
Oh, mate, I think you get a few votes. You definitely get my vote on that one, mate. I know that. I think, like you say, I think it's massively important. I think it's really interesting watching Si, how he's tackling it, and how he's sort of managing it and having to sort of change things around just to accommodate that. Because, again, his mind is still that 21-year-old flying down a hill on a mountain bike and stuff, and generally falling off stuff. Now he's just older, still falling off stuff, but how he's having to manage that. And I mean, from a coach's point of view, the way I've had to really tailor his training now is being really focused. And actually his overload days, so these would be red days for yourself, he's generally he's only got 2 a week now. Actually, after a red day, the drop off in terms of his HRV and his recovery is rapid. So it's making sure that all of the other stuff around that. So he's generally doing a lot more high performance recovery type sessions. So a lot more breathing, mobility type work, concentric only type stuff. So he's flooding the body and trying to encourage that protein synthesis, but also just repairing the tissues. But we're having to really manage that. So it's really interesting, isn't it? Actually, the stuff that you could probably take for granted, i.e., maybe it's the odd bits of alcohol here and the later nights and the poor sleep. As you get older, it's actually, you have to really rein them in a little bit more and try and make sure, because the inflammation process, like you just said, is massive, because that has such a knock-on effect across the board.
It really does. And on any injury protocol really is something you're using on on a lower level on a daily basis. It's just as part of your recuperation process.
Yeah.
So like the need for additional collagen in your shakes and things like that, I think that becomes more crucial as you age as well, because there's always something that shouldn't be aching quite as much as it actually is.
Yeah, these old injuries that were able to shake off start to show up the head on, do you know what I mean, and stuff. So I've still got a few years till that, although it is my birthday today. I'm only 31.
Oh,
I've still got a few
oh,
years.
nice one, mate. Happy birthday.
Thank you
Oh,
very much, mate.
that's proper dedication interviewing me at 7:30 in the morning on your birthday, mate.
Mate, you've got to give yourself a present whenever you can, mate, and you are my present, a gift to myself. But anyway, Matt, I know I've taken up enough of your time. So one last question. So if we were to look at, this is just going to be a pure plug for Amino Man Nutrition. I'm a big, massive supporter of the products. A lot of my guys are. We touched on the R5s there, if anybody's struggling with sleep. But in terms of kettlebell athletes, what would be, I know I've got my top 5 products from yourself, but what would be kind of the right, guys, if you could only focus on one thing in terms of sleep, obviously go for R5s. If you're looking at towards competition, go for the power loader. From your point of view, and obviously I know it's going to be ultra biased, but what would be your top 5 sort of supplement go-to if you're going to go and head over to Amino Man now? What would be your sort of go-to, look out for sort of thing?
So first of all, there's to help everyone out, there's a flash sale on. So SFL Strength for Life 25. So just the capital letters SFL 25, no gaps. Gets you 25% off anything in the store. So that's like a little helping hand if someone was thinking about using some of the complexes and blends. I think you're right. I think you have to prioritize. So if you're waking up today and you know that sleep's a priority, then you go straight to the product which helps most with that blocking factor in your current training status. So R5s is the best option for sleep and overall recovery. The power loader is it's 60% discounted at the moment, so it's basically cost price. So it's a very good time to pick that up, and that is going to help anyone leading into competition, or even if you're not competing, just take that for a block and see where you get to in terms of new PBs and things like that. You then have a general training support. So the metabolic amino complex is going to help you get a little bit more out of your training. Very good for fasted state training. It's only 18 calories a scoop. It's got all those Krebs cycle intermediates and it's the CoQ10, all that type of thing, as well as essential aminos, leucine, carnitine. It's got loads of things in it. Taurine, it's big spec formula. So those would be like performance-wise, probably my top 3. Mm-hmm. And then you're looking at, well, okay, so where's my baseline diet? Do I need some greens because I can't eat greens at breakfast? Do I need to guard against deficiencies in the winter? For example, how do I know what my vitamin D status is? Have I taken any vitamin D this year or been on a summer holiday? If the answer is no, it's almost a certainty that you need a bit of extra vitamin D until the sun starts shining in the spring. So multivit / vitamin D complex. And then if inflammatory issues are a problem for you, then you might want to go in with the fish oils, curcumin type of stuff. Yeah, so that would be nice. There's a product, V-Nitro, which takes 3 kilos of grape and apple skin to make 1 tablet, and that's a very powerful oxygenator. So different to nitrate, so it works slightly differently, but it's actually in Europe, it's one of the go-to medications for erectile dysfunction.
Right, okay.
You kind of got like a natural Viagra plus training support, but it isn't like Viagra. Like you're not going to be getting excited during training.
That's good to know because there's quite a few blokes who train in tights, so that's definitely good to know. Well, that is absolutely fantastic. Like I say, so just to recap for the guys, SFL 25, give 25% off. Myself, I can't speak highly enough of the R5 aminos. By far the most effective supplement I've ever taken. That's helped me with my sleep and recovery. 1, and 2, it actually tastes nice as well. It's a nice warm drink to have before you go to sleep. Definitely vouch for that one. And the power loader as well. I know I used that in the lead up to Korea. And I always try and make sure that I try and get that before competitions, and just do know a marked difference, especially kind of 6 to 8 weeks out, because of the volume is so high and the intensity is starting to really creep up. So it makes a massive difference. So I could definitely vouch for those two, because vouch for pretty much all of it on the site, to be fair. I've had it at one form or another. But guys, I really recommend getting on that. So cheers for putting that code out there, Matt. That's much appreciated, buddy, you know.
No worries, and thanks a lot for having me on, mate. That's brilliant.
No problem, mate. No problem. Thanks for giving up your time, and hopefully it was a nice welcome distraction from writing your book in the morning, mate, you know.
Yeah, it was nice one.
Nice one. Right, well, cheers for that, Matt, and hopefully we'll catch up soon. But thanks again, buddy.
Have a good birthday, mate.
Cheers, mate.